Three beeps came from the credit card reader. Refused. My Gucci belt and designer sunglasses don't match the reality of my Chase Sapphire maxing out on a $12 latte, and the barista gave me that look that says she's seen this before. "Do you have another card?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. 5 people lined up behind me at this hip coffee shop in West Hollywood. I could feel their gaze on my back, my Louis Vuitton tote that cost 3 months' worth of my real income, and my Balenciaga sneakers. I had my phone in my hand, Instagram open, and a carefully edited photo of my morning coffee routine was prepared for sharing. "Starting the day right" was the caption that had already been written. My name is Madison Hayes. I'm 27 years old, and until 3 months ago, 340,000 people on Instagram thought I was living the dream. Luxury apartments, designer clothes, exclusive events, brand partnerships with companies you'd actually recognize. My life looked perfect. Golden, even. The kind of existence that made people stop scrolling and think, "I wish that was me." What they didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I was $73,000 in credit card debt, living in a shared apartment in Van Nuys with 2 roommates, working part-time at Nordstrom to barely cover minimum payments, and the designer life they envied was built entirely on borrowed money and borrowed time. The moment that card got declined in that coffee shop, with those people watching, with my phone in my hand showing a feed full of lies, that was the beginning of the end. But it was also, somehow, the beginning of something real. Let me take you back to where this started. Not the coffee shop. Earlier. Much earlier. To the moment I decided that being ordinary wasn't enough. It was September 2019. I'd just moved to Los Angeles from Phoenix, Arizona, with $800 in savings and dreams of becoming something. An actress, maybe. A model. An influencer. Honestly, I wasn't sure. I just knew that Phoenix felt too small, too ordinary, too far from the life I saw on social media every single day. I got a job at Nordstrom in Beverly Hills. Sales associate, designer handbags department. $42,000 a year, plus commission. Not terrible for LA, but also not enough to live the LA lifestyle I wanted. I shared a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 other girls in Van Nuys, each of us paying $950 a month, which was the cheapest we could find that wasn't completely sketchy. But working at Nordstrom, surrounded by luxury every day, watching wealthy women drop $5,000 on a handbag without blinking, it did something to me. I started believing that wealth was just a matter of looking wealthy, that if you appeared successful, opportunities would follow. That fake it till you make it wasn't just a saying, it was a legitimate strategy. I created my Instagram account in November 2019, at Madison Lux Life. The aesthetic was carefully curated from day one, soft lighting, neutral tones, aspirational but achievable. I posted photos of lattes from expensive coffee shops, sunset views from Runyon Canyon, free, outfit photos in front of luxury stores, where I worked, and motivational quotes about manifesting your dreams. At first, it was harmless. I was just sharing my life, or at least a prettier version of it. I gained followers slowly, 100, then 500, then 2,000. Mostly other girls trying to do the same thing, all of us pretending we'd made it while working retail jobs and living in cheap apartments. Then I discovered the formula. The algorithm. The exact type of content that made people stop scrolling. Luxury plus aspiration plus just enough relatability equals viral growth. I began experimenting with my content. I would visit upscale hotels, sit in the lobby, snap pictures, and then depart. Post them with a caption that suggests I was staying there, such as afternoon meetings. At valet stands, I would take pictures of myself getting into fancy cars. They weren't mine. I was just standing close to them. I would go to free events, sample sales, and anything else I could get into, taking pictures as if I were there. My follower count started climbing. 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. That's when the first brand reached out. A small jewelry company offering to send me a bracelet worth $80 in exchange for a post. I was ecstatic. This was it. Proof that my strategy was working. I posted the bracelet with genuine enthusiasm, tagged them, and watched my engagement skyrocket. More brands followed. Skincare companies, clothing boutiques, a handbag brand that sent me a bag worth $300. I wasn't making money yet. Everything was gifted in exchange for exposure, but I felt like I was climbing toward something real. My follower count hit 50,000 in June 2020. The pandemic had actually helped. Everyone was stuck at home, consuming more social media, craving escapism. My aspirational content was exactly what people wanted to see while they were trapped in their apartments. That's when I made my first big financial mistake. I upgraded. I got my first real credit card with a $10,000 limit, Chase Sapphire Reserve, the one with the heavy metal feel that made you look successful when you pulled it out. The annual fee was $550. I convinced myself it was an investment. The card came with travel benefits, lounge access, points that could become more content. It was a business expense. Except I didn't have a business. I had an Instagram account and a retail job. I used that card to buy my first real designer item, a Gucci belt. $650. I wore it in every photo for 3 months straight, styled different ways, justifying the purchase as cost per wear. The post announcing it got 83,000 likes. My highest engagement ever. Comments flooded in. Goals. How do you afford this? Living my dream life through you. Drop the styling tips, queen. Nobody asked if I could actually afford it. They just assumed I could. And I never corrected them. By December 2020, I had 90,000 followers and $12,000 in credit card debt. The debt was spread across 3 cards now, and I was making minimum payments by picking up extra shifts at Nordstrom. It was fine, I told myself. Manageable, temporary. Once I monetized my following, I'd pay it all off and the investment would have been worth it. January 2021 brought my first paid partnership. A fitness app wanted to sponsor a post for $800. 800 actual dollars for one Instagram post. I nearly cried when I saw the offer. This was validation. Proof that I'd been right to invest in my image, right to build this following, right to believe that looking successful would lead to actual success. I took that $800 and immediately spent $500 of it on a photo shoot with a professional photographer. Because now that I was getting paid deals, I needed my content to look even more professional. The remaining $300 went toward my credit card minimum payments. More paid deals followed. A clothing brand, $600. A meal delivery service, $400. A travel company offering a free weekend in Palm Springs in exchange for content. My Instagram was working. Money was coming in. But the problem was, the money coming in was never quite enough to cover the money going out. Because here's what nobody tells you about being an Instagram influencer. You have to keep upgrading. Your followers expect evolution, growth, more luxury, more exclusive content, more aspirational living. You can't post the same coffee shop forever. You can't wear the same 5 outfits. You can't stay in the same tier. I was making maybe $2,000 a month from brand deals by mid-2021. My Nordstrom job was still bringing in about $2,800 after taxes. Total income, $4,800 a month. Rent was $950. Utilities about $100. Phone, car insurance, gas, food, maybe another $800. That left me with roughly $3,000 a month for content creation and debt payments. Except content creation was expensive. Professional photos, $500 per shoot, minimum twice a month. Outfits for content, easily $1,000 monthly, even with discount codes and sample sales. Hair and makeup, $300. Dinners at trendy restaurants to photograph, $400. Events, Ubers, props, subscriptions to editing apps. It added up fast. I was spending $4,000 a month to maintain an image that earned me $2,000. The math didn't work. but I convinced myself it would eventually. I just needed to reach that next follower milestone. Just needed to land that one big brand partnership. Just needed to keep pushing until I broke through to the tier where influencers actually made real money. My follower count hit 150,000 in August 2021. The brand deals got bigger. 1,500 for a post, 2,000 for a campaign. But so did my expenses. I couldn't post the same content at 150,000 that I'd posted at 50,000. The audience expected more. I opened 2 more credit cards, added another $20,000 in available credit. I told myself it was strategic. I was leveraging debt to build an asset, my personal brand. Entrepreneurs did this all the time, right? You had to spend money to make money. By December 2021, I had 200,000 followers and $39,000 in credit card debt. I moved into a nicer apartment. Not with roommates, alone. A studio in Koreatown for $1,800 a month. I needed my own space to create better content, I justified. I needed a backdrop that looked expensive. The shared apartment in Van Nuys with roommates' stuff in every shot was holding me back. January 2022, my credit card debt hit $47,000. I was making about $4,000 a month from Instagram now, and my Nordstrom income had dropped because I'd cut my hours to focus on content. Total monthly income, maybe $5,500. Monthly expenses, $7,000 minimum. The gap was widening, but I couldn't stop. Stopping meant admitting failure. Stopping meant my followers would see the truth. Stopping meant all that debt had been for nothing. I started taking out cash advances on my credit cards to pay minimums on other credit cards. The interest rates were criminal, 23%, 27%. One card at 29.9%. I was paying over $1,000 a month just in interest charges. My follower count hit 250,000 in April 2022. I was invited to exclusive events now. Fashion shows, product launches, influencer trips. I'd post from these events, carefully angling my phone to hide the fact that I was wearing the same 3 designer items in different combinations, that my luxury lifestyle was actually maxed out credit cards and anxiety attacks at 3 a.m. One night in May, I attended an influencer dinner in Beverly Hills. 20 of us at a long table at some trendy restaurant, everything paid for by a watch brand. We were each supposed to post about the evening, tag the brand, look beautiful and successful and aspirational. I sat between 2 other influencers, one with 400,000 followers who was talking about her investment portfolio, another with 600,000 discussing her apartment search in Manhattan Beach, casually mentioning her budget was around $1 million. And I sat there, in my rented designer dress. Yes, I'd started renting clothes I couldn't afford to buy, nodding along, laughing at the right moments, posting Instagram stories of champagne and oysters, while internally calculating whether I could afford my car insurance payment next week. That's when it hit me. I was drowning. Not metaphorically. Actually drowning in debt I couldn't pay back, maintaining a life I couldn't afford, for an audience that would disappear the second they knew the truth. But I couldn't stop. The algorithm rewarded consistency. If I disappeared, my engagement would tank, brands would stop reaching out, and then I'd have nothing but debt and no way to pay it. So I kept going. Kept posting. Kept pretending. June 2022. My debt hit $58,000. July, $63,000. By August, I'd maxed out 5 credit cards, opened my 6th, and was paying minimums with cash advances. The minimum payments alone were $1,700 a month. The interest was eating me alive. I started getting collections calls. One card had a missed payment, then another. My credit score, which had been a respectable 720 when this started, was now 590. September 2022 brought a new problem. My Nordstrom manager pulled me aside. "Madison, we need to talk about your attendance. You've called in sick 7 times in the past 2 months. You're late constantly. I know you have your Instagram thing, but this is still your job." I wanted to tell her that my Instagram thing was barely keeping me afloat, that I was late because I was up until 4 a.m. editing content and responding to brand emails, that I called in sick because I was having panic attacks about money and couldn't face standing in a luxury department store selling handbags I couldn't afford while hiding my own financial disaster. Instead, I said, "I'm so sorry. It won't happen again." But it did happen again, because I couldn't maintain both lives anymore. In October, my follower count hit 340,000, the biggest I'd ever been. Brands were reaching out daily. I was making about $6,000 a month from Instagram, the most I'd ever earned. By all external measures, I was succeeding. Internally, I was $73,000 in debt, behind on my credit card payments, one missed rent payment away from eviction, and clinically depressed. That's when I made my biggest mistake. A brand reached out, a luxury lifestyle subscription box company. They wanted me to be an ambassador, post about them 4 times a month for 6 months, create video content, be the face of their influencer campaign. The pay was $25,000 total, paid over 6 months. $25,000. It felt like a life raft. With that money, I could catch up on minimums, stop the collection calls, breathe for a minute. There was one catch. They wanted me to do a live launch event, in person, in front of other influencers, press, their corporate team. They wanted the face of their campaign to be present, professional, and representative of the luxury lifestyle they were selling. I said yes. Of course I said yes. I needed that money desperately. The event was scheduled for November 18th, 2022. A Friday evening at a venue in downtown LA. I spent $2,000 I didn't have on a new dress, new shoes, professional hair, and makeup. This was my moment. This contract would save me. I walked into that event feeling like I'd made it. 340,000 followers, a $25,000 brand deal, an audience that believed I was living the dream. What I didn't know was that 3 people in that room were about to destroy everything I'd built. A journalist who had thoroughly investigated influencer marketing fraud was the first. The second was another influencer who knew I wasn't who I said I was because they had seen me at Nordstrom. The third was a brand representative who, as part of their partnership vetting procedure, had performed a standard credit check. All 3 of them knew the truth. And within 72 hours, so would everyone else. The launch party was exquisite. A champagne tower glistened under spotlights. Servers passed around serving pricey hors d'oeuvres, and string lights hung from exposed brick walls. There were about 60 people in the room, including Instagram influencers I knew, business casual corporate types, and a few photographers who were taking pictures for social media. I arrived 15 minutes late, intentionally. The entrance strategy was calculated, late enough to make an entrance, early enough not to be rude. I'd learned these small tactics from watching other successful influencers. Every moment was content. Every interaction was performance. The brand's marketing director, a woman named Vanessa, greeted me immediately. "Madison! So glad you're here. You look absolutely stunning. We have some people who are dying to meet you." She guided me through the crowd, introducing me to their executive team, other brand ambassadors, a reporter from a lifestyle blog. I smiled, shook hands, said all the right things. "I'm so honored to partner with your brand. The subscription box concept is genius. I can't wait to share this with my community." Every word felt hollow, but my face showed nothing but enthusiasm. Around 30 minutes in, a woman came up to me as I was standing close to the champagne tower, ready to post an Instagram story on my phone. Sharp blazer, mid-30s, textile media press badge. "Madison Hayes?" she asked. "That's me," I said, putting on my influencer smile. "I'm Jennifer Chen. I write about influencer culture and digital marketing. I've been following your content. Very aspirational." "Thank you so much," I said, waiting for the compliment to continue. It didn't. "I'm curious," Jennifer continued, her tone still friendly, but with an edge I couldn't quite place. How do you manage the financial side of content creation? The luxury lifestyle you showcase must be incredibly expensive to maintain. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't a normal question. This was an interview question, an investigative question. Oh, I said, keeping my voice light. Brand partnerships, strategic investments, just being smart with money. Strategic investments, she repeated, pulling out her phone. That's interesting, because I've been doing some research for an article I'm writing about the economics of influencer culture, the gap between appearance and reality. You came up in my research quite a bit. My throat went dry. What kind of research? Before she could answer, another voice interrupted. Madison? Oh my God, I thought that was you. I turned to see a girl about my age, blonde, familiar in a way I couldn't immediately place. She was smiling, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. It's Brittany, she said. We worked together at Nordstrom? I was in shoes. You were in handbags? I left about 6 months ago. My stomach dropped. A coworker. Here, at an event where I was being presented as a successful influencer entrepreneur. Oh, hey Brittany, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What are you doing here? I work in PR now, actually helping coordinate this event. Small world, right? She looked around the room, then back at me, her smile sharpening. This is quite a change from Nordstrom. You must be doing really well with Instagram now. I remember you were always on your phone during shifts, posting content. The journalist, Jennifer, was watching this exchange with intense interest. Things have been good, I said carefully. I've been really fortunate. I bet, Brittany said. I still follow your account. The lifestyle you show is incredible. Designer everything, fancy restaurants, luxury hotels. Makes me wonder how we were working the same retail job just a couple years ago, and now you're living like this. She gestured around the room. You must be making bank from Instagram. She knew. I could hear it in her tone. This wasn't friendly small talk. This was a call-out disguised as a conversation. Jennifer stepped closer. That's actually what I'm researching. The financial reality behind influencer lifestyles. Madison, would you be willing to go on record about your actual income and expenses? I think it would be valuable for my article to include real numbers from someone at your follower level. I don't really discuss my finances publicly, I said, my voice coming out more defensive than I intended. That's fair, Jennifer said. But you do discuss them implicitly, right? Every post showing designer items, luxury experiences, you're communicating wealth whether you intend to or not. I'm just interested in the reality behind the image. I needed to get out of this conversation. I should go say hello to some other people. It was nice meeting you both. I walked away quickly, heading toward the bathroom. My hands were shaking. I locked myself in a stall and tried to breathe. This was fine. This was just one journalist asking questions. One former coworker making passive-aggressive comments. It didn't mean anything. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa, the marketing director. Can you come to the back office? Quick chat before we do the official announcement. I splashed water on my face, fixed my lipstick, and headed to the small office in the back of the venue. Vanessa was there with 2 other people, a man in his 50s who looked like he was from corporate, and a younger woman with a laptop. Madison, thanks for coming back here, Vanessa said, her tone different now. Professional but cold. This is Rick, our VP of Marketing, and Hannah from our legal team. Legal team. My heart started pounding. We need to discuss something before we move forward with the partnership announcement, Rick said. As part of our standard vetting process for brand ambassadors, we run background checks, financial verification, social media audits, the usual. I couldn't breathe. I knew what was coming. Hannah opened her laptop. Your credit report came back with some concerning findings. $73,000 in outstanding credit card debt, 5 accounts currently in collections, Credit score of 587. Madison, is this accurate? The room tilted. They knew. They actually knew. They'd run a credit check and found everything I'd been hiding. I can explain, I started. But I didn't actually have an explanation that would make this okay. Vanessa added, we also noticed some posts on social media that question the veracity of your lifestyle content. You may be pretending to be wealthy for Instagram, according to a Reddit thread and multiple Twitter conversations. We are unable to collaborate with an influencer whose legitimacy is under scrutiny. Wait, what Reddit thread? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Hannah turned her laptop toward me. On the screen was a Reddit post from 2 days ago. Is Madison Luck's life actually rich, or is she faking it for Instagram? Deep dive into the receipts. The post had 4,000 upvotes and 600 comments. I scrolled through, my vision blurring. People had screenshot my posts and analyzed them. Someone had identified that I'd worn the same Gucci belt in 87 different posts over 2 years. Another person had tracked that my luxury apartment photos showed the same small studio from different angles, not multiple high-end residences like I'd implied. Someone else had found my Nordstrom employee profile from a year ago. The comments were brutal. She's 100% faking it. This is so embarrassing. I knew something was off about her content. Imagine going into debt for Instagram likes. This came out 2 days ago, Rick said. It's been gaining traction. Combined with your financial situation, we can't move forward with the partnership. The contract is void. $25,000. Gone. The life raft I'd been counting on had just disappeared. We're going to need you to return the advance we sent, Hannah added. $3,000 was transferred last week. $3,000 I'd already spent on tonight's outfit and paying down one credit card to avoid it going to collections. I don't have it, I admitted. I spent it. Rick and Vanessa exchanged a look. Then we'll need to discuss a repayment plan, Hannah said. Our legal team will be in touch. I walked out of that office in a daze. The party was still happening, people laughing and networking, completely unaware that my entire world had just collapsed. I grabbed my coat and left through a side exit without saying goodbye to anyone. On the Uber ride home, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. My DMs were flooded. Most were from followers who'd seen the Reddit thread. Is it true you're broke? Did you fake everything? I can't believe I looked up to you. A few were supportive, but most were angry. They felt lied to, deceived, used. I opened Twitter. My name was trending. Someone had created a thread exposing the Reddit post, adding their own research. Screenshots of my posts next to Google Street View images, proving I'd photographed my apartment building that was actually a luxury complex I didn't live in. Evidence that some of my brand partnerships were unpaid, that I'd implied sponsorships that didn't exist. The thread had 28,000 retweets. I was being exposed in real time, across multiple platforms, by hundreds of strangers who'd never met me but had decided I was the perfect example of everything wrong with influencer culture. It was midnight when I arrived home. I watched my follower count decline while sitting in my studio apartment, which I could hardly afford, and which had never been as nice as my carefully staged Instagram photos suggested. 340,000, 339,000, 337,000. Hundreds of people were unfollowing. My phone kept buzzing. Brands I'd worked with were emailing. In light of recent information, we're terminating our partnership. We're removing your content from our platforms. Please don't use our products in future posts. 6 brand deals canceled in 2 hours. That was $4,000 in monthly income gone. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my floor, watching my career disintegrate on a screen, unable to stop it, unable to defend myself because they were right. I had been faking it. I had been lying. I had built an entire persona on debt and deception, and now everyone knew. By morning, I'd lost 47,000 followers. The comments on my recent posts were vicious. Fraud. Fake. Pathetic. Delete your account. Some people defended me, but they were drowned out by the anger. Jennifer Chen's article published that afternoon. The Illusion of Influence: How Aspiring Creators Go into Massive Debt, Chasing Instagram Fame. I was the main subject, though she used a pseudonym. But everyone knew it was me. The article detailed everything: the credit card debt, the retail job, the gap between my posted lifestyle and my reality. It went viral. 170,000 shares in 24 hours. I called in sick to Nordstrom. I couldn't face going to work, couldn't face my manager, couldn't face standing in a department store where everyone had probably seen the article, the Reddit thread, the Twitter takedown. On day 3 after the exposure, my manager called me. "Madison, we need to talk about your employment. The publicity around your situation is affecting the store. Customers have been coming in asking about you, taking photos. Corporate is concerned about the association. I'm sorry, but we're going to have to let you go. I lost my job over a phone call. 3 years at Nordstrom, gone because my side hustle had imploded publicly. My rent was due in 5 days. I had $1,200 in my checking account. Rent was $1,800. I called my landlord and begged for an extension." He'd seen the news. "I'm sorry, Madison, but given your financial situation that's been made public, I need you out by the end of the month. I can't risk you not paying." Eviction. I was being evicted. I called my parents in Phoenix. I hadn't spoken to them in 6 months. I'd been too busy maintaining the illusion, too ashamed to admit I was struggling. My mom answered. "Madison? Honey, we've been trying to reach you. We saw the articles. Are you okay?" I broke. Completely, utterly broke. 3 years of holding it together, of pretending, of maintaining the performance, and I shattered. "Mom, I messed up so bad," I sobbed. "I'm $73,000 in debt. I lost my job. I'm getting evicted. Everyone hates me. I don't know what to do." She was quiet for a moment. "Come home. Pack what you can fit in your car and come home." "I can't," I said. "I failed. Everyone knows I failed. How do I face anyone?" "Madison, you're our daughter. You made mistakes, but you're not defined by them. Come home. We'll figure it out." I spent the next week packing up my studio apartment, selling what I could on Facebook Marketplace and Poshmark. The designer items that had defined my Instagram aesthetic went for a fraction of what I'd paid. The Gucci belt that had been in 87 posts sold for $200. I'd paid $650. I made about $4,000 selling everything. It went directly to credit card minimum payments to stop the collections calls temporarily. My Instagram account, which had once been at 340,000 followers, was down to 281,000. I hadn't posted since the exposure. I didn't know what to say. How do you address publicly destroying your own credibility? How do you apologize for lying to hundreds of thousands of people? The day before I left LA, I sat in my empty apartment and wrote a post. Not a perfectly filtered photo with a clever caption. Just words on a black background. I must be truthful. You were lying about everything you believed to be true about my life. I'm not wealthy. I owe $73,000. I don't lead an opulent life. For 3 years, I've been pretending to be an influencer, which has ruined my career, finances, and mental well-being. I apologize to everyone I misled. I apologize to the brands I deceived. I feel bad for believing that likes and followers were more important than being honest. I'm heading out of LA. I have no idea what will happen next. However, I'm done acting. I posted it and turned off my phone. When I turned it back on 2 hours later, the post had 83,000 likes and 9,000 comments. Most were supportive. Thank you for being honest. This takes courage. I respect this more than any luxury post you ever made. Some were still angry, but the tone had shifted. I drove back to Phoenix the next morning with everything I owned in my Honda Civic. 27 years old, 73,000 in debt, unemployed, living with my parents, and a failed influencer with a permanently damaged online reputation. I thought my life was over. I thought I'd hit the lowest point possible. What I didn't know was that the post I'd made, the honest one, the vulnerable one, the one where I admitted everything, was about to change my life in a way that luxury content never could. But first, I had to survive rock bottom. My childhood bedroom looked exactly the same. Same pale yellow walls, same posters from high school, same twin bed I'd slept in until I was 18. I was 27 years old, sleeping in a twin bed in my parents' house in Phoenix, with $73,000 in debt, and a phone full of notifications I was too scared to read. The first week back, I barely left my room. My parents tried to give me space while also checking in constantly. My mom would knock softly and ask if I wanted dinner. My dad would mention job openings he'd seen, carefully avoiding any mention of Instagram or LA or the very public nature of my failure. I finally opened my phone on day 5. My Instagram had lost another 20,000 followers, bringing me down to 261,000. But the comments on my confession post had multiplied. Over 15,000 comments now, and I forced myself to read them. I've been following you for 2 years, and this is the first post that made me feel like I actually know you. Thank you for this honesty. I'm 23, and I've been trying to build an influencer career and going into debt doing it. This post made me stop and reevaluate everything. I unfollowed you when the exposure happened, but I'm following you back now. This is the content we need. Please keep sharing your real journey. The fake luxury stuff was pretty, but this is actually valuable. My DMs were different too. Instead of brand partnership offers and engagement pods, I was getting messages from people sharing their own debt stories, their own struggles with social media comparison, their own experiences of pretending to be someone they weren't. A message from a girl named Sophia particularly stood out. I'm 25, and I have $42,000 in credit card debt from trying to be an influencer. I've been too ashamed to tell anyone. Your post made me realize I'm not alone. I called a credit counselor today. Thank you for being brave enough to tell the truth. I sat on my childhood bed and cried reading that message. My failure, my public humiliation, had somehow helped someone else avoid more damage. That hadn't been my intention. I'd just been desperate to be honest. But it had happened anyway. I responded to Sophia. You're not alone. If you need someone to talk to about the debt recovery process, I'm figuring it out too. We can figure it out together. She wrote back within minutes. We exchanged numbers. That night, we talked on the phone for 2 hours about credit counseling, debt consolidation, the shame of admitting financial mistakes. It was the first real conversation I'd had about money in years. No pretending, no performance, just 2 people trying to navigate the same mess. The next day, I posted again. Not a perfectly edited photo, just a screenshot of my credit card balances with the account numbers blurred out. $73,112 across 6 cards. The highest interest rate was 29.9%. The minimum payments totaled over $2,000 a month. The caption: this is what 3 years of faking a luxury lifestyle actually looks like. These are real numbers. This is real debt. I'm sharing this because I spent years hiding it, and hiding it made everything worse. If you're in debt and ashamed, you're not alone. I'm starting the process of dealing with this today. I'll document the journey if anyone wants to see what actual financial recovery looks like. That post got 97,000 likes. My DMs exploded with thousands of messages from people sharing their own debt numbers, their own shame, their own relief at seeing someone talk about it openly. I'd spent 3 years trying to go viral with luxury content. The post that actually connected with people was me showing my debt. My dad helped me find a credit counseling service in Phoenix. I had my first appointment a week after arriving home. The counselor, a man named Tom in his 60s, reviewed my entire financial situation. Okay, he said, looking at my paperwork. $73,000 in credit card debt, currently unemployed, no assets. Credit score of 587. You're in a tough spot, but not an impossible one. The first thing we need to do is stop the bleeding. No more credit card use, period. We're going to contact each creditor and try to negotiate settlements or payment plans. I don't have income to make payments, I said. How am I supposed to negotiate anything? First, you get a job. Any job, even if it's not the job you want. Then we build from there. I applied to 63 jobs in 2 weeks. Retail, restaurants, call centers, anything that would hire me. The problem was my Google results. Potential employers would search my name and find the articles about my Instagram fraud, the Reddit threads, the public exposure. I didn't get callbacks. Finally, a local coffee shop hired me. The manager, a woman in her 40s named Rita, was blunt during the interview. I know about your Instagram situation. I looked you up. Here's what I care about. Can you show up on time? Can you make a decent latte? Can you be honest with customers and coworkers? Yes, I said. All of those things. I just need a chance. Then you're hired. $7.25 an hour plus tips. 25 hours a week to start. It wasn't much. After taxes, I'd be bringing home maybe $800 a month. But it was something. It was honest income from honest work. I started posting about this too. Photos of me in my coffee shop apron, captions about what it felt like to go from fake luxury influencer to minimum wage barista. The audience response was incredible. People appreciated the humility, the reality, the documentation of someone actually dealing with consequences. My follower count stabilized at 255,000. I'd lost 85,000 followers in the exposure, but the ones who remained were different. They weren't following me for aspirational luxury content. They were following me for the reality of recovery. A financial literacy company reached out in January. They'd seen my debt transparency posts and wanted to work with me on educational content about credit card debt, interest rates, and financial recovery. The partnership was different from anything I'd done before. They wanted authenticity, not aspiration. They wanted me to document my actual debt payoff journey. The pay was $1,500 per month for 4 posts and 2 video pieces. It wasn't the $25,000 deal I'd lost, but it was legitimate income for content I was already creating. I used the first payment to make a lump sum payment on my highest interest credit card, $400 toward the principal. It barely made a dent in the overall debt, but it was progress. Real progress. I posted about it, showed the payment confirmation, explained how I'd prioritized which debt to pay first, shared the resources Tom, the credit counselor, had given me. That post reached 2 million people. Brands in the financial education space started reaching out. By March, 3 months after the exposure, I had 3 active partnerships focused on financial literacy and debt recovery. I was making about $4,000 a month from content, plus my coffee shop income. After taxes and living expenses at my parents' house, I had about $2,500 a month to put toward debt. It would take over 2 years to pay off $73,000 at that rate, even without adding any new debt. But for the first time, I had a plan. A real plan, not a fantasy about making it big and paying everything off with some imaginary windfall. April brought an opportunity I hadn't expected. A podcast host named Marcus reached out. He ran a show about entrepreneurship and failure called The Other Side, with 300,000 listeners. He wanted to interview me about the influencer economy, debt culture, and what I'd learned from my very public failure. I was terrified. Doing an interview meant talking in detail about my mistakes, my debt, the lies I'd told. But I said yes. Because hiding had gotten me into this mess. Maybe honesty could get me out. The interview aired in early May. I talked for 90 minutes about everything. The initial FOMO that got me into Instagram, the first credit card, the escalating expenses, the moment I realized I was in too deep but couldn't stop, the exposure, the collapse, the rebuild. Marcus asked the hard questions. At what point did you know you were lying to your audience? Did you ever feel guilty? What would you say to other creators who are currently faking their lifestyle? I answered honestly. Yes, I'd felt guilty constantly. Yes, I'd known I was lying, but convinced myself it was just marketing. Yes, I'd recommend that anyone currently in that spiral stop immediately, regardless of how many followers they might lose. The episode went viral. Not controversy viral like my exposure had been. Value viral. It was shared in business schools, by financial advisors, by parents sending it to their kids as a cautionary tale. The podcast reached number 3 on Apple's business charts. My inbox filled with speaking requests. Universities wanted me to talk to students about social media and financial literacy. Companies wanted me to speak to their employees about authenticity and mental health. High schools wanted me to warn teenagers about the dangers of debt and comparison culture. I started saying yes. My first paid speaking engagement was at Arizona State University, talking to a marketing class about the reality behind influencer economics. They paid me $500 for a 45-minute talk plus Q&A. I'd made $500 sharing my failures and what I'd learned from them. It felt more valuable than any luxury brand partnership I'd ever had. By June, 6 months after the exposure, my financial situation looked completely different. I'd paid off $18,000 in debt, bringing my total down to $55,000. My credit score had climbed to 637. I was making about $6,000 a month from a combination of my coffee shop job, financial education partnerships, and speaking engagements. More importantly, my relationship with money had transformed. I tracked every expense. I had a budget. I understood interest rates, minimum payments, and the actual cost of debt. The education I was sharing with my audience, I was simultaneously learning myself. My content evolved too. Instead of photos of designer items, I posted screenshots of my debt payoff tracker. Instead of expensive restaurant meals, I shared budget-friendly recipes I was making in my parents' kitchen. Instead of luxury travel, I documented free hiking trails around Phoenix. The engagement was better than it had ever been with luxury content. People commented with their own budget tips, their own debt payoff strategies, their own stories of financial recovery. I'd built a community based on honesty instead of envy. In August, I moved out of my parents' house into a small one-bedroom apartment. $650 a month, modest and perfect for my actual budget. I furnished it from Facebook Marketplace and thrift stores. I posted the whole process, including the spreadsheet where I'd calculated that I could afford the rent while still putting $2,000 a month toward debt. That post about moving into my small, affordable apartment got more engagement than any luxury apartment content I'd ever created. September brought the biggest opportunity yet. A publisher reached out. They wanted me to write a book about my experience, the rise and fall of my Instagram career, the debt spiral, the recovery process. They were offering a $45,000 advance. $45,000. Almost enough to pay off the remaining debt completely. I negotiated with Tom's help and my parents' advice. We settled on $50,000 plus royalties. The contract was signed in October. I'd be writing about the worst period of my life, but I'd be turning it into something valuable for other people. And I'd be using it to finally get out of debt. I put the entire advance toward my credit cards. After taxes, I had about $33,000. Combined with the $16,000 I'd already paid, I'd knocked out $49,000 of the original $73,000. I had $24,000 left. The day I made that payment, I posted about it. Not bragging, just documenting. Showing the payment confirmations, explaining the tax implications of the advance, being transparent about how much was left. The post got 312,000 likes. Comments flooded in with congratulations, with people sharing their own debt payoff victories, with questions about the book and when it would come out. I spent the next 4 months writing the book while working at the coffee shop and creating content. It was exhausting, but it was purposeful. Every word I wrote was honest. Every chapter documented a real mistake and a real lesson. The book deal came with something else I hadn't anticipated: media attention. But this time, it was different from the exposure. Journalists wanted to interview me about financial recovery, about social media authenticity, about what it meant to rebuild after a public failure. I did interviews with financial magazines, lifestyle podcasts, even a segment on a morning show about the hidden costs of influencer culture. Each interview felt like an opportunity to help someone avoid the mistakes I'd made. By December, exactly 1 year after my confession post, I'd paid off $68,000 of debt. I had $5,000 left. My credit score was 704. My follower count had actually grown to 310,000, more than I'd had before the exposure. But this audience was completely different. They weren't following me for luxury content. They were following me for the reality of financial recovery, for proof that you could come back from massive mistakes, for community with others working through similar challenges. The final $5,000 in debt got paid off on January 15th. I made the last payment on my highest interest credit card, the Chase Sapphire Reserve that had started everything, and screenshot the zero balance. I posted it with a simple caption: 1 year and 2 months after being exposed for $73,000 in credit card debt, I'm debt-free. Here's what it took: honesty about the problem, a job I didn't want but needed, living with my parents at 27, working multiple income streams, saying no to everything that wasn't essential, accepting help, being transparent about the process. It wasn't fast, it wasn't easy, but it was possible. If you're in debt and feeling hopeless, I want you to know, recovery is real. It just doesn't look like you think it will. That post reached 4.2 million people. It was shared by financial advisors, by debt-free communities, by people who'd been following my journey from the beginning. The comments section became a celebration. Thousands of people sharing their own debt-free dates, their own recovery timelines, their own hope that if I could do it, they could too. My book came out in March. Filtered: How I Went $73,000 into Debt Chasing Instagram. Fame and What I Learned. Rebuilding from Zero. It debuted at number 7 on the New York Times bestseller list. The royalties started coming in. Real income from work I was proud of, from honesty instead of deception. By April, I'd saved $10,000, an actual emergency fund, money I didn't owe anyone, money that wasn't borrowed, money that represented security instead of debt. I was still living in my small one-bedroom apartment, still working at the coffee shop 2 days a week because I genuinely liked it, still creating content, but now I was partnering with brands I believed in, promoting products I actually used, being transparent about paid partnerships versus organic content. My income was stable at around $8,000 a month from book royalties, speaking engagements, and authentic brand partnerships. I wasn't wealthy, but I was secure, and the security felt better than any fake luxury lifestyle ever had. In June, 18 months after the exposure, I got a message that brought everything full circle. It was from Sophia, the girl who'd first messaged me about her own debt after my confession post. Madison, I just made my final debt payment. $42,000 paid off in 18 months. I did it because you showed me it was possible. Thank you for being honest when everyone else was still pretending. You changed my life. I cried reading that message. Because that's what the whole nightmare had been for. Not the followers, not the brand deals, not the appearance of success. The actual impact. Helping someone else avoid pain or get through it faster. I'm 29 now, 2 years removed from the exposure, 3 years removed from the peak of my fake luxury lifestyle. My Instagram has 437,000 followers. I make good money from authentic work. I have savings. I have a credit score over 750. I own my car outright. But more than any of that, I have something I never had during my luxury influencer days. Peace. I don't wake up at 3 a.m. panicking about debt collectors. I don't lie to people about my life. I don't pretend to be someone I'm not. I don't measure my worth by likes and follows and the appearance of wealth. The exposure was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And it was also the best thing. Because it forced me to confront the truth I'd been running from. That real success isn't about looking successful. It's about building something genuine, sustainable, and aligned with who you actually are. People sometimes ask if I regret the Instagram career, the debt, the public humiliation. The answer is complicated. I regret the lies. I regret the pain I caused myself and others. I regret the years I spent chasing an image instead of building a reality. But I don't regret where it led me. Because the person I am now, the work I do now, the life I have now, none of it would exist without the collapse. My message to anyone watching this who's currently living beyond their means, going into debt for appearances, pretending to be wealthier than they are. Stop. Right now. Before it gets worse. Before the debt becomes insurmountable. Before the lies become so tangled you can't find your way out. The truth will come out eventually. It always does. And when it does, you'll wish you'd been honest from the beginning. But if you're already in that place, if your debt has been exposed or you're about to hit rock bottom, I need you to hear this. You can recover. It won't be fast. It won't be easy. It won't look like the highlight reel comeback you might be imagining. It'll look like humble work, like living below your means, like saying no to things you want but don't need, like being honest even when it's humiliating, like accepting help from people you thought you'd outgrown. But on the other side of that humility is something better than any luxury lifestyle. Real stability, real peace, real relationships built on truth instead of image. 2 years ago, I was $73,000 in debt, publicly humiliated, living with my parents, and certain my life was over. Today, I'm debt-free, building a career I'm proud of, helping other people avoid the mistakes I made, and genuinely happy. The exposure destroyed the life I was pretending to have, but it gave me the chance to build the life I actually wanted. And that trade, as painful as it was worth it. If my story helps even one person put down the credit card, close the Instagram app, and choose reality over image, then every moment of the humiliation, the debt, the rebuild was worth it. Choose honesty. Choose reality. Choose yourself over the image. The followers will come and go. The likes mean nothing. But the life you build with truth? That lasts. Thank you for listening to my story. If you're going through something similar, you're not alone. And recovery, real recovery, is possible. I'm living proof.